But yeah, so, like I said, he explained it like a roller coaster ride and just having fun for that moment. And then when it's done, that's it. What is their next? And I never thought of mental health like that for some people that are going through counseling. And like, and I thought to myself, if he ever ended his counseling, what would happen? Because I was thinking, what would happen to, his family? And then what about his daughter? We going into this profession, we got to remember it's not just the client anymore that's affected by it. It's the people that are connected to them and the relationships they hold. I have so many people that I talk to that talk about suicide awareness. Um, I've had a few people on my friends list try to commit suicide and end up in ICU. And and a lot of it is either they won't go to counseling and work through it, or they did it and they weren't ready yet, and they didn't know how to get the person working with them to understand they just weren't ready. So you know, this is something that we all have to kind of think about when trying to terminate a counseling session, or even if we know, like, hey, you might not want me as your counselor, maybe we can find you a new person and see if you connect with them before actually starting the sessions, instead of them just closing out counseling and not getting any kind of help.
I
Um,
think a lot of people don't know that they can do that. Like I've always been a shop around kind of client, I guess. Like Bruce said, I mean, I'm not one, like I will go to therapy, but I won't stay in therapy just because I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or whatever. Like I went to a therapist first before I went to this last one, and I didn't like her. She shared a lot of personal information about her like fertility issues, and I was super uncomfortable. Yeah. And I mean, like about how she couldn't get pregnant and how they adopted these 7 kids. And I'm just sitting there like, this has nothing. I don't know how to relate, you know? And I thought it was very strange. And so I just I told my husband when I got home, like, I won't be going back. Like, it was very weird. And she talked about religion a lot with me. And I'm not a religious person. I don't care if you are. It's not a part of my life really. So, for me going to therapy, I really don't have, I felt like I couldn't relate to what she was telling me. And I felt very strange that this was our kind of introductory session. I've been to therapy a lot. I've never had that happen. And I'm just like, I don't, but I think people are afraid to shop around. And I used to tell everybody that used to come in to Pine Rest, therapists, no offense to our profession, are a dime a dozen and they're everywhere. You
mhm.
can find them anywhere. Don't be afraid if you don't like one or don't connect one, because everybody has different methods and different treatments and different personality. To find one you like, keep going. Keep going, And I used to say it all the time because I'm just like, I am a client of therapy myself. I'm not afraid to go to somewhere else. And, so.
No,
I think
that's
a lot of people don't
understandable.
know that they can just end it and go to a new one. So anyway,
No, that's true. That's very, very true. We have that right. I mean,
hmm
we're paying them anywhere from 25 and up an hour, whether
right,
it's us
yeah,
directly or the insurance. So
right,
we have the right to find
right,
somebody else.
yeah.
I was
I
trying
agree.
to have that discussion with like my best friend because I started going to see a therapist, so she's like, I'm gonna go see a therapist too, and she was going to therapy, and she was like, well, my therapist just like says I'm doing really great with everything, and I was like, you just like got brutally attacked by a dog. You're suffering from PTSD over it because it was like a massacre of her leg was just like
Oh,
slashed by this animal that was her boyfriend's dog, and then they broke up directly afterwards. I was like, I don't think like this is I don't think your counselor should be like, great, yeah, soon to be, you're great, yeah. And I was like, your therapy should like, you should feel better, afterwards, or at least be like deeper in thought, or like really like finding things, connections, patterns, like that kind of stuff that maybe you didn't know before. Like, is any of that happening? She's like, no. She's like, I don't really think I'm going to go to therapy. And she went like 3 or 4 more times. So it was like, I'm getting nothing from these sessions. Like, we're just
right.
like talking about things I'm doing, and she just tells me good job. I'm like, okay,
Ugh.
man, like she's not pushing you at all to any level of, I don't know. And I don't think a therapist necessarily needs to be super pushy or anything. It's just like, I feel like you should be getting something, either you discovering it or them leading you to it. You should be getting something out of it that would make you want to come back. So
Yeah, challenging a little bit.
right. And I get that not every person is in that position that really wants to be maybe like pushed and stuff, but I don't know. I've known her for like 19 years, so I'm like, you need to be pushed, girl. But anyway.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like my last therapist. She never posed any challenging question. She just listened to me, and that was it. And I mean, great. Who doesn't want to be listened to for like an hour every week? But it just wasn't. There was nothing. I even told my husband, I'm like, I'm not really getting anything out of it. She's not posing any questions. She's not challenging me. She's not asking me any kind of future scenarios. And I should have ended it when I did, like earlier, but I was just like, this is like my third one that I've tried out, and I'm just kind of tired of trying them out. And I thought, I don't really need to go that long. And I didn't. I was only in therapy for about 4 or 5 months. But I think the reason that I feel like I need to go back is because I didn't get anything out of it. And I shouldn't have been afraid to say that. And, I felt like I was.
Yeah.
Well, this would be kind of an example of being addicted to therapy. So, like I said, I've been married, me and my wife have been married now for a year. And one of the problems that we found that we have is that she knows how to argue with her ex, and I know how to argue with my ex. But we don't know how to argue with each other. We know how to talk, we know how to converse, we know how to do everything on a positive note, but argument is a healthy part of a relationship, and we do not know how to do that constructively. Matter of fact, we both shut down. I'm a fixer, she's a runner. So I chased, and it's kind of like it's kind of a psychological chasing around the house, but we just don't move. And so both of us, and plus you got to add on to it that both of us are involved in a 12-step process. So we're taught innately to share our feelings and how we feel. We want to talk about, there's sometimes that in a relationship, feelings should not be shared right away, or maybe not even at all. So I decided we'd go to therapists. We'd go to a couples therapist. And we went in, we started talking to him, we started meeting with him. He says, okay, so, what's going on? And this guy's ready and used to hearing people come in and going, well, she did this and he did that. And we're in there going, well, we love each other. We just don't know how to argue with one another. And he's just like, okay, well, this is a new one for the books, but he met with us and we got a lot of really good stuff out of it. And we learned a little bit about how to deal with each other. But he terminated us. Because, in a nice way, it wasn't like in a rejection way, because he's like, you guys argue just fine. He says, and in all honesty, I'm giving up an hour and a half of my time that I could put somebody else inside this position. He says, unless you guys have something that's really dangerous to your marriage, he says, you guys do just fine. And he says, and I'm like, oh, okay. I said, well, we can go find another therapist then, So and I'm just sitting here and I'm listening to all this and I'm like thinking, wait, what's wrong with me? I need to go see a therapist because my therapist won't see me. So
Oh man. Yeah, we're trying to start the whole premarital counseling thing. They won't take us until we set a date for marriage. And we recently had an argument. Well, it was kind of a one-sided argument. I kind of just blew up about things, and I was like, I am not attending premarital counseling or talking about anything to do with marriage right now until we kind of finish working on ourselves first. I said, because there's still some things, like one of the biggest things with him, he's still selfish, and in a way mentally he's still single. He hasn't, he knows he has a family and but he hasn't grown past that. so he still has selfish tendencies. And me being a mom and stuff, and the way I was raised, I don't know what it is to be selfish. So I only know is taking care of people and all of that. So we're working through that. And I was like, I will not see a therapist or a Christian pastor or anything. I won't do anything until we work. I'm not going to start something just so somebody can get mad and terminate it. And I've had a lot of people, well, he's had a lot of people, I should say, go to premarital counseling, get some counseling before you get married. I witnessed my friend go through premarital counseling with her husband, and I was like, well, why did you guys still get married if they told you not to get married? You guys, I'm like, the way you guys fight and things is very unhealthy. So you guys need some additional counseling. Like, don't share with me. I'm not a therapist, but the things you are sharing, you guys both need counseling, because she's a runner and she's a mess. But I was like, no, you guys need some help. Like, seriously, he's got some issues he needs to work through that he never finished working through. They both went into counseling for PTSD and got paired together, and that's how they met. And they were married within the year. And I was like, no. Like, you rushed that, and that's too soon. Like, that's scary. I'm like, you need to go to counseling. I said, if you don't like what the church is saying, go to an outside counselor. Go to a regular secular counselor, and get a different point of view, because that's, you really need something. You need some kind of help to really break things down. They still haven't, and so they fight a lot, and then it's on Facebook. And I'm like, you guys get off of Facebook. Don't involve social media, please. This is not the counseling forum. Don't do it to yourself, because then you've got people saying, yeah, just leave. And she's got her pastors on there, and then they're like, well, have you guys thought about coming back to premarital counseling? I'm like, oh my gosh, they're already married. They need marriage counseling. They don't need premarital, because they've already been married for a couple years. Like, come on. They need,
Are they getting counseled without premarital counseling from like actual counselors or pastors? Because I feel like it's different.
Yeah, they're getting it from pastors. Because normally when you go through premarital, a lot of the times the church is involved, so you can use the church to get married. But in this sense, the last time she said they went through the church for counseling, the pastors canceled it and didn't say anything. And that was it. And I was like, no, that you need to go to an actual counselor. You guys need to work through all of this.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of that.
I am too.
We, in Michigan at least, we have, before James and I got married, it was mandatory that we went to premarital counseling. And we got married in a church where I was baptized in, and it was, he never said anything. We just went in there and talked about like what we were going to do for the wedding. And I'm like, so like, are you going to counsel us? And he's just like, you guys seem like a good couple. You're fine. And I'm just like, okay. And then I have a friend who was getting beaten up and raped by her husband, and she went to the church and they told her it was a sin to get divorced. And I told her, you need to go to an actual counselor, because this small town religious crap isn't working. And they're telling you that. And I was so mad. And so I'm skeptical of like pastors counseling when they don't have counseling background. Mm-hmm. I'm just skeptical of that, because it's tough for me when my friend went for aid and got that in return. And I'm not saying every situation is like that and every pastor's like that. I understand that. But in my town where I'm from, it was like that.
No, that's understandable. There's a lot of things that, like I used to go to church every Sunday, and I've actually stepped back. I stepped back a lot just to deal with my own self. I'm one of those people, like, yeah, I've gone to counseling, but in order for me to really work on me, I have to be by myself. Like, I can't be surrounded by others, because it's just so hard, because everybody wants to share their opinion on your life and what to do. So I go to church every now and then, but I haven't been consistent anymore. But my friend, she's been going, and like I told her, one of the times she did share with me that her husband had beat her up, and she was FaceTiming with her mom, and her mom witnessed it. And I told her, I said, either you're gonna leave. I finally got to a point where I said, whether you're gonna leave and get counseling, or you guys are gonna work it out and separate a little bit, live separate, work it out, and each of you go to counseling separately. Something's got to give. And they decided to do a covenant marriage. And so in Arizona, they have what's called a covenant marriage. And you have to go to premarital counseling in order to do this type of marriage. And it's not easy to get out of. Before your partner can agree to a divorce, you have to go to marriage counseling first to agree to this divorce. If one party doesn't agree, you have to go to counseling and you have to show proof that you went. My first husband and I, we didn't do it, and we were different religions anyway, so it wouldn't have worked out. We just, he was Jehovah's Witness, and me being Christian, I don't even know how we even survived. But yeah, in Arizona, that's what we have. And she did that. And I was like, why did you do that? I'm like, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm like, but I would not have done that. She's like, well, I did it because I didn't want to run anymore. So this is her first marriage. And I was like, I don't care if you didn't want to run anymore. Even if you did a regular marriage, you could still just go to counseling together. You can do that. You could tell the courts, we tried, we've been, this and that. I'm like, you didn't have to do a covenant marriage. I'm like, now you made it harder that if he practically kills you, you can't just leave. You have to go to counseling. So, yeah, I just don't know anymore.
Yeah, that saying goodbye in that relationship seems impossible.
Yeah, though Arizona's a little bit strange.
Michigan's not much better.
I've done the premarital counseling through my church twice. And it's, for the lack of a better term, I think that they only use counseling based off the fact that it is a person who is guiding another person, and that's the only reason why the word counseling is put into it. It's like if I was to decide to go down and get married at the Justice of the Peace, I wouldn't need to go through any of it. It's for like at my church, it's the only way that you can get a pastor there to marry you is that you go through, and they essentially go through, like both of us having our second time through being married. The pastor's just like, okay, well, you guys know how to terminate a marriage. Well, let's talk again about how Christians, can work on trying to keep the marriage together. And it's just about following God's rule on, bringing God into our life and making God the focus of our marriage. And it was like, I don't know. I've done a lot of men's groups, Promise Keepers, Anchorman. It was kind of like doing that. We worked out of a workbook and the whole 9 yards. And all the counseling that I've done, my premarital counseling was nothing like it at all. It was like doing a Bible study is exactly what it was like doing. So, but I also know about the covenant marriage thing, and I know that the very first time, my very first marriage was a very sick marriage, and we talked about doing a covenant marriage. Thank you, Lord, that I did not do that. And then the second time through, it was a question that popped up, and both me and my wife looked at each other and said, yeah, no, and we agree. If we want out, we want out, and no piece of paper is going to keep us in. That's just how it is. Just like if I want to get clean from drugs, I'll get clean from drugs because I'll go and I'll get help. So yeah, the covenant marriage, Arizona is a funny place. I don't think Arizona is the only place, but it's one that's definitely talked about the most here in Utah. So
yeah, that's accurate. Yeah, I'd never heard of that.
I didn't hear about it until I was filling out my divorce papers, and I was like, was this a covenant marriage? And I literally had to go and look up what it was. I was like, holy Jesus, that sounds terrible. So yeah, and it would have been like divorces in general are really difficult, but then when you put that into it too, there's a bunch of questions on their divorce paperwork where you have to go through answer if that's what you went through and like have to say that you did get counseling and all that. I can only imagine like how much, especially if you're being beaten or whatever the situation is, how much longer that process would feel. It would almost feel impossible and claustrophobic, you know. But
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the scary thing. I mean, I understand about involving the church in terms of like counseling, but I mean, a lot of the churches don't have licensed counselors.
Right.
You know, it is pastors that are just doing it. So then it's like, okay, how do we terminate this and, you know, keep going? Like some people, they'll terminate their counseling that's going on with the pastors, and then they don't really know what else to do or where to go. And there's not a lot of resources in the church on, you know, on counseling. You know, it's usually go to God, pray to God, read your Bible, praise and worship, which I get that. I'm all for it, you know. But when it comes to somebody really just like, I need counseling, I need help. And I've told people in the church when they've shared with me about things, I'm like, do you journal? And they're like, what? I'm like, do you journal? I'm like, if you can't get to a counselor or find a counselor to help you, do journaling. I said, that's the best thing that I ever started doing in my life. And I said, I just write how I feel on paper. When I feel overwhelmed and I know I'm not going to go to a therapist because of whatever reasoning, journal it. And I told my therapist, I was like, he's like, well, what do you do, you know, during times that you're upset or what? I said, I journal. I do. I journal. I tell my kids, journal, write it down. Only one of my kids will journal. The others, they just won't do it. But she does. I'm like, nobody's gonna read it. It's gonna make you feel good. You know, you could. I mean, if you go to therapy and you want to take it to therapy with you and share out of it with your therapist, you can. You know, you can let them know, like, on this day I was feeling like this because of this, and you know, I have like 5 journals. But that's what I was doing for a long time before I would even go back to therapy. And I did the whole, what is it? Like you write a letter to the people that have hurt you and then you burn it and, you know, it's like a release. I put in practice some of the things that I've learned that can take place in counseling and did them myself before actually going back to counseling. Just because I was at a point where I wasn't sure if I would ever go back and see a counselor or a therapist and get the help that I needed.
Yeah.
I think that's really awesome that you do that. I think journaling, especially when you have a house full of people, to do that. So I think that's really awesome that you do that.
Yeah.
I do journaling as well. I've got lots of notebooks behind me on my bookshelf back here. Many years of journaling. So I hope no one ever gets their hands on them when I die, that I don't care. And read about how crazy their father was.
I used to do journaling in school, but I don't do it so much anymore.
Same.
Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
found it that helpful, honestly. Like, I understand a lot of people do, but I just get mad when I see how I'm feeling on paper. I just get more upset. I don't know. I just can't, I don't process things that way, I guess.
Makes you relive it.
Yeah. And it makes me more upset because I have that.
For
feeling.
me,
Sorry, no, I'm done.
No, I'm sorry. For me, like, I will say like the meanest thing to people off the top of my head. And it's not like how I'm truly feeling or anything like that. So I think journaling for me is like, it helps me work through what I'm feeling. And I literally will go through and like cross out what I didn't mean. It was just an explosion of emotion. You know what I mean? I go back through and be like, that was a time bomb. All right, not correct. What I really meant was this, or, you know, the anger all comes out first and then it gets down to like the hurt and why I was angry in the beginning. And then I can get to my truth at the end of it. So for me, that's how it works. But I think that anger is it's a secondary emotion, but it's so powerful that it overshadows everything. So I think that's why for me that works.
Yeah, journaling for me, it helped me when I went back to therapy, because after I went to therapy, I would like journal about like what happened, what was shared, and it kind of helped me put things in um, orderly perspective. I mean, like I said, I was there in counseling, to go talk about my sister's death and just how I felt because it was unexpected. And then like I started working through like my abandonment issues. Even though I wasn't like truly abandoned, I had abandonment issues because I always felt left, like especially with things that happened with my mom. Like she was there but she wasn't there. She was, oh, we're going out drinking, we're going out this, and I was always by myself, and then I was raised like an only child. So it ended up me working through things and issues that I had. And then yeah, I was like sad that my sister was gone, but then it made me realize like, hey, your issues don't really stem from that. That's just another, it's a second and third issue that's not as important than the things that you went through as a kid that you never worked through. So it really just, always puts it in perspective, because I'm one of those people, I'll just band-aid it and keep on moving, and it doesn't bother me. So when I went to counseling, I was like, okay, these are all my issues. And now I realize like, hey, you should have been working through this years ago, instead of just like, oh, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. We do that when we don't want to involve another person in our lives. Because that's how I am. I will not involve people if I don't want to. I will pretend like everything is gravy until I just can't no more.
A lot of us do that.
No, I don't.
Yeah. You just drink Mountain Dew till you feel better. I mean, really.
I do. All the Mountain Dew in the world makes me feel happy.
I think saying goodbye with therapists is important, but I think saying goodbye to people who are toxic in your life is just as important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like learning how to, like, terminating therapy, you made the choice to go. I mean, hopefully you made the choice to go. So you making the choice to leave is just like a natural process. But like saying goodbye to the people in your life that have been there or whatever, but aren't good for you or good for your mental health, it's tough to say goodbye. So I think like that gets skipped a lot.
It is. That's a whole nother part of counseling that I don't think any therapist really talks about. They always say set healthy boundaries, do what's best for you. But one of the biggest things is they don't tell you cut it off. If it's not working, if it's not healthy, leave it alone. Walk away from them. I follow this lady, her name is Real Talk Kim, and she is a pastor. And she always says, let the trash take itself out. If they walked away from you, that's God allowing them to walk through that door and not come back. And I mean, I love listening to her talk. Half the time she's like yelling, but it's therapeutic. She does her live at 9 on Facebook, and I try to get home by 6 so I can watch. And another thing she always says is fix your face. Stop living in this victim posture. Stop allowing these people to have so much hold on your life, and just let them go. Say goodbye. And it's hard for us to say goodbye to anybody, especially when at one point in time that person meant something in our life. If they were important to us at some point, and it's not anymore, let them go. And it is hard. Like for me, like I love my mother dearly. We only get one, but I've had many times where I've had to walk away from her because of things just not being the way they needed to be. I couldn't do it. My sister, the same thing. She's like, I have to walk away because this is unhealthy. Like, we just have to learn that they're not going with us. our journey with them is done at whatever level it is, and we need to keep moving. But it is, saying goodbye is hard. It really is. It's not, I don't think it'll ever be something that gets easy.
No. And saying goodbye to a parent, I think, isn't like a normal or natural situation. Like, I have had also issues, obviously, with my mother that I've talked about before. And, I always see like, or hear, it's your mom, and I only have one parent left because my dad died, and so it's your mom, and this is and this. Well, if somebody treated me like a friend treated me the way my mother treats me, they would be saying that. So like I take that into account, and I thought I was in a place where I could have her in my life where I was like, I don't know if stable is the right word, but like mentally aware maybe, or self-aware, that I could discern what she was doing and be like, okay, I can separate myself. But I'm shocked that I still get shocked by the things she does. And she's been like this my whole life. And it's gotten worse as I've gotten older, but I haven't seen my mom in a year, and she lives in Michigan. And she flew to Germany to be there for 2 months, and she can't drive 2 hours to see her only child. And that part is the toughest for me to separate, because I tell my husband all the time, like, I'm upset that I'm upset. I'm upset that I'm sad that she still has this. It's not a hold, because I don't feel like that, but like I still have emotions about her, and I shouldn't, because she's done nothing but treat me like crap. And if you can't do anything for her, she doesn't want you. And so it's upsetting for me that I'm better, because I don't fall into the traps, and into the verbal mind games and the mental mind games and all that. I don't fall into that. And I've spent my entire life decoding that. Like Nancy Drew over here, and she just can't, she just can't get right. And it's very tough. And the last conversation that we had on the phone is before she left. And I said, I've never liked our relationship. And I haven't. I've always wanted a better relationship with her. And she just doesn't want to work on it. And we've been to therapy. And the first therapist we went to, my dad had originally paid for, I guess, because she was my child psychologist. And my dad was dead by the time we went. And she's like, she's taking your side because your dad used to pay for her. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, you're so crazy. And then we went again, and this was after I got my DUI. And I said, you pick the therapist then. You pick them, you pay for them, and I will go. And out of all the therapists in Michigan, picked the one that counseled me during my DUI. And I'm like, now she knows me. And she knows about you because I've talked about you. And we still went, and we got nothing out of it. She just refused to do the work, refused to participate, refused to acknowledge anything. And I eventually had to say goodbye to that relationship. She's never going to be my mother the way I need her to be. And I have to be okay with that. And the day my dad died was the day I lost both my parents. And I had to learn how to be okay with that. And it took 20 years, but I'm getting there. And I have, thank God, the love of my husband, because I don't know who else would put up with it. But he has, and I love him for it. And I don't know where I'd be without him, because I don't have anybody else. I have no other family. So, it's, but he's very much a saint. So, it's, to say goodbye to a parent isn't easy when they're not here, but to say goodbye to a parent when they are here is even harder, I feel like, because they have the choice. So
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
But it was extremely hard when my father passed away. He was sick with cancer for 11 months, so we all knew it was coming, but that didn't really make it any easier. Just seeing him kind of wither away into nothing, and seeing his personality change as he got really sick and he couldn't eat anymore. but I never ended up seeing a grief counselor after that, and that's something I've been considering doing.
Yeah, I mean, my dad died after like 19 days of being diagnosed, so there wasn't a lot of time to process, and it was over 9/11, so we didn't have a lot of time with him because flights weren't going out. So yes, we knew. I almost think it's better that it was quicker. Honestly, there was one day that he didn't know who I was, and that was the hardest part for me. So I understand saying goodbye in that kind of way is incredibly traumatic and incredibly difficult. And I did not see a grief counselor for a long time, or a counselor for a long time about it. I mean, it affected me and my relationships later, when I was getting older. But my relationship with my mom has always been bad, and my dad told me when he was sick that he's like, I'm scared to leave you alone with her. And I was devastated that is what he was thinking about, because they were divorced. And I was devastated that I mean, he had every right apparently to be fearful of that, but to have to say goodbye to your parent who's still living is, I felt like it was harder than saying goodbye to my dad, because at least there wasn't a choice there. There wasn't a choice for him. So
Yeah.
But
I know one thing that I've been considering, and it's been rough because I always tell myself, what am I going to do when my mom dies? Because she's still in the nursing facility. And even though she's getting better, statistically, stroke victims, especially the massive stroke that she had and the fact that there was a brain bleed and it's affecting her brain, there's no telling. She could live for a year, she could live for 3 years, but then I'm like, am I going to say bye to Arizona and move somewhere else, or am I going to stay here by myself with the kids? I mean, I have support, but in terms of like family, it's like, what am I going to be saying goodbye to? Because all our family is in Texas, and we're the only two fools that are out here burning up in Arizona. So, it's like, it's learning to say goodbye in many different scenarios, not just with relationships, but environments, jobs. If it's not working or it's not healthy or whatever, sometimes we just gotta learn to say bye to it and keep going. I mean, it's hard to keep going, but we gotta learn to say bye to it.
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they're necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Says it
Feel
in
like
less than a minute. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like waiting for the ball to drop and stuff again. Like, I'm not gonna say nothing because it's just gonna cut me off. Bitter and upset and
Yeah. We still have a minute and like 19 seconds, so we're okay for the few minutes, few seconds we've got.
I can't be that short-winded. No, I am going to say something then, and then it's going to just cut me off, but that's okay. No, so listening to all this and then taking that into consideration of my experience as well, it seems to me that attachment has everything to do with our ability to say goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And at first I was thinking, well, of course, if I love somebody like my mom, if she leaves, then I'll be, I won't want to say goodbye and it'll hurt. But I also have people that are very unhealthy that were in my life that I had to leave behind, and saying goodbye to them was also difficult because it was even an unhealthy attachment is an attachment. And I'm hearing that even like with therapists, with family members, with toxic friends. I don't have any of those kind of people in my life today, but I can develop those attachments really easily. And once I have that attachment, then it's hard to say goodbye.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm like a dog with a